How's it going, guys? Zain Jafrey here with the Jafrey Group of Coldwell Banker Real Estate. There's been a lot of talks these days about the real estate market and whether or not prices will or will not go up. Now, what I want to do in this video is look at the last 5 years of numbers for Durham Region. There's a lot that has happened in the last 5 years, and I'm pretty sure you'd like to know as well. When we look at the real estate market, we tend to look at it from a very year-over-year point of view, which is great to an extent, but for the most part, you're not living in a home for a year. You're living in a home for maybe 4 or 5 years. Now, what's most important is to look at it from a 5-year span, because that gives you an idea of whether or not the market is healthy. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to start in July of 2015, and we're going to take a look into the July market of 2020. Now, if you bought a home back in July, you'll kind of get an idea of where your value would be 5 years later. And now this is also a great time, whether you're thinking about buying a property this year, or you're thinking maybe I'll hold off until next year. Take a look at these numbers, because when you look back 5 years from now, for almost everyone who bought a property in 2015, it has been a great investment. Stay tuned, guys. What's going on, guys? So like I said, I wanted to shoot a 5-year review for Durham Region just because there's so much that's going on in Durham Region. There's so much that has changed from 2015 until now in 2020, and I'm sure that there's going to be more changes coming down the road. So it's interesting to see how the market's been changing year over year. Now, Durham Region does span quite a bit, but we're going to be more specifically focusing on Pickering, Ajax, Whitby, Oshawa, and Clarington. We're also going to include Port Perry as well as Brooklin. So the average price in Durham Region in 2015 was about $448,000, and 2015 is really when Durham Region took its turn. In 2014, the average price was $399,000. So that's kind of when the growth started. As you can see, we had year-over-year growth. We saw more stabilization in 2016. 17 and 18, but then last year it started rebounding once again, and now we're in 2020. So if you bought a property for let's say on average in 2015 for $448,000, that property now is worth around $709,000, and that's just on the average. And obviously it depends on whether it's a detached, a semi, a condo, as well as the condition. So we're gonna break down the stats even more to include the detached market, the semi-detached market, and the condo slash townhouse market. Now, when we break up the market even more and take a more specific look into the detached market in Durham Region, if you bought a property back in 2015 for $495,000, that same property now on average would be worth around $779,000. So that's a $284,000 increase over the span of 5 years. And obviously, if you decided to sell before, let's say 2020, you still got a fairly good return on your investment. A lot of people tend to look at the year-over-year numbers, but it's more important to see the more long-term numbers, because that's when you really start to see growth. You're usually not in a property for a year. You're in it for a couple of years. Now, if you bought a property, let's say a semi-detached in this case, so a semi-detached is a property that's connected on one side. Let's say you bought it in 2015 where the average price of a semi-detached in Durham Region was $349,000. Now, in 2020, the value of that property is around $582,000. So you're looking at a little over $230,000 increase in value. So now if you bought a property, let's say in 2015 for $350,000, and you decided that this year you wanted to sell it, you would have made about $230,000+, and then you could take that equity and buy, let's say, a detached property now. Now, when we take a look into the condo and the townhouse market, just remember that there wasn't a lot of inventory to begin with in 2015. 2016 and 2017 is really when the townhome as well as the condo market started expanding in Durham Region. what we saw. So let's say you bought a property, a condo or a townhouse in 2015 for $271,000. That same property would be worth about $494,000. So that's $223,000 that you've made in your home in the last 5 years. So if you decided to, you know what, maybe I want to move into a semi-detached now, or even a detached property, you have over $200,000 in equity that you've built up, where you can take that equity and move it into a bigger property, right? But if you didn't buy a property at all in 2015 because you were hoping that the market would go down, it actually did the opposite. And from the looks of it, it went up about $50,000 each year. Now, when you take a look at the numbers from the last 5 years, you really see that real estate isn't necessarily the short game that we've become accustomed to. Our market is we're in a fortunate situation where a market can give us such high returns. If you look into other parts of Canada, the market isn't as strong as it is in Toronto and the GTA. So if you look at the market from a more 5 year point of view, or even a 7 year, the average person stays in their home for about 5 to 7 years before they decide to either upgrade or downgrade, depending on their upsize or downsize depending on their situation. Now, if you're looking to upsize, then you have a substantial amount of equity built into your property. So you can take that equity and you can move it to your newer home. Or if you're looking to downsize, you can take that equity and maybe even cash out. It really depends on what your goals are. Now, when you're looking to buy a property, I get it. You don't want to overspend because you don't want that feeling of, you know what, I spent too much money. But look at it from the 5 year point of view. If you bought a property, let's say 5 years ago, you thought you were paying a lot of money for it because everything's relevant at the end of the day. But now, when you look back 5 years, you realize that you got a great deal, right? So it's just the same with if you're thinking about buying a property now. Don't necessarily look at it for how much is it going to be worth next year, because that is important. But what you should be looking for is how much is it going to be worth 5 years from now, or maybe even 10 years from now, because the best time to buy real estate was yesterday. The second best time is today.
How's it going, guys? Thank you guys so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did because I got a great insight of the real estate market from 5 years ago until now. Now, if you've been thinking about buying or selling a home in the Durham region, please feel free to reach out. The most important thing that you can do as a home seller or as a home buyer is to be knowledgeable about the market, and that's what we're here for. Real estate professionals like myself are here to provide you with information so you stay up to date with what's going on in the real estate market. Have a good day.